what are things that change that you could do as a investor selling your properties for, obviously we all want to be able to sell them for cash for 100% of market value yesterday, right? That's
Yeah.
everybody's dream. Whenever you can't do that, what are some of the steps that you can do? Obviously, buy a good asset, right? First place, right? Like we just talked about, great access, usability,
Yeah.
feasibility, with like and kind as far as pricing and everything. What are other steps as far as down payment, as far as interest rates, as far as all that? How else can we help these people send us properties that we can pay them the most that we can?
Okay. So there's a few different things. I'm going to save the best one for last. It might be the thing that most people aren't thinking about.
Yep.
Start off one. I mean, everybody knows interest rates. It's not going to help you a ton because you're not going to be able to raise it a whole lot on people. But like right now, most people that are owner financing are somewhere around 10%. So what I do on my own properties and what I suggest other people do is instead of just going with the basic 10, throw out 10.9, 10.5. Half the time you'll get it and they won't even say anything back to you because they're more looking at the payment, 10, 10, 9. They don't, they're like, whatever. But, on a property, let's say a loan is $100,000 loan, just to make the numbers easier.
Yep.
If you go from 10 to 10.9, it's going to pocket you a couple extra $1,000, and it's no different than negotiating the price.
Yep.
So always, I would say, especially people are going 10, try 10 and a half, 10.9. And then second one, of course, is down payment. If someone's selling a property for $100,000, you got 20% down. Well, on that $20,000, you're not having to discount that to us. So, if we're buying a note at say 75% of its value, and you can get 30% down instead of 20, well, now you don't have to discount that extra $10,000. That saved you an extra $2,500.
Yep.
So you can always start by asking for 30% down and let them talk you down. You'll get it sometimes. And then I think
Well,
the
and
biggest thing,
here's another key to that too, guys. If you're willing to allow them to buy down their rate, if they go from 10.9 to 9.9 and they're willing to put an extra 10 grand down, right? You're still going to get that yield is still going to be about that same, and you're still going to be able to put more money in your pocket. Plus, us as the buyer of that note, if they've got 30,000 bucks into that some bitch, they're not walking away from it.
yeah. And a lot of people, everybody wants to just negotiate on price. Well, you can let them win on price and they feel like they're winning, but make them give to you on the down payment and the interest rate. And you're still coming out better. They think they won the negotiation. You let them have that last $2,000 that you're fighting over. But guess what? You made more than that by increasing everything else.
Yep.
And then, so the third thing, biggest thing that I don't think many land investors either know about or do is putting a balloon on the note. So, especially if you're selling a piece of property where someone's going to buy or not buy, but build a house on it, most people are going to build a house within 2 to 3 years of buying that property. So they're going to refinance out of this note anyways. So if you try to get a balloon, what that does is whenever we buy a note, we're buying it discounted. So let's say $100,000 note, and I'm just making up numbers here. If we're buying it and we're paying $75,000 for it, and it's a 15-year note, we're getting that additional $25,000. That's how we're raising our yield, but it's stretched out over 15 years. If you do a balloon and you can shrink that down to 5, it makes the yield shoot way up, so we can pay you a lot more for that note.
What went from
Now,
72% may go to 82% of UPB.
yeah, and where it really makes a difference is if you can get it down to 2 to 3 years. If you do 7 years, it'll make you a couple thousand extra, not a lot. 5 is when it really starts increasing, and if you can get it down to 2 to 3, I did one the other day, and I can't remember the loan amount, but once they put that balloon in there, I was able to pay them an extra $12,000 for the loan because they couldn't do that, and I was like, "Well, go back and renegotiate it." And I said, "Tell them there's a balloon," And the people didn't have a problem with it because that's exactly what they were going to do. They were going to build a house, and
Yep.
they knew that they would. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Well,
people need to be thinking about doing balloons and
learn
trying.
learn to run a financial calculator, right? Like
Yeah.
that thing can make you tons and tons of money. And like you said, that 5 year mark, because if you look at a 4 or even a 5 year mark, right? Let's just say $150,000 note. This is just something I was playing with a couple days ago on that deal in Gatesville that we're doing. It makes where all I'm giving up, even to give a nearly a 15% yield, I'm still getting 90% UPB at an 8.5%, 8% interest rate, which is lower than the bank, at a 4 year balloon on a 20 year amortization. I'm hardly giving anything away. I'm netting just
Yeah.
about what I'd be doing there, right? And so that's just
Yeah.
the time value of money.
Yeah. And what I always do is I always start out my negotiations with that, and then I feel them out because they're never going to want to do it, and their real estate agent that's representing them isn't ever going to want to do it. But if you throw it out there to start with, as this is my starting offer, sometimes you'll get it. And now they may talk you, hey, no, not 2 years, we want 7, and then you can settle on 5 or whatever. But and it's the same thing too. It can also help you at the price. You're like, at the end of the day, you're like, fine, no balloon, but I'm not coming down in price, or no balloon, but I want 10.9 instead of 10. It just, since you're starting out, they have to talk you down instead of just price. Now they're having to talk you down on balloon, on rate, on down payment, on all of it. So anytime you're negotiating, hey, if I give you this, then you give me this. It gives you a lot more to negotiate with.
Well, especially right now, you're like, hey, you know that interest rates are we all know interest rates are going to come down, right? Whether that's a year, 2 years, whatever that is, interest rates are going to come down. You're going to, especially when you have a residential lot, you know that they're going to build out there, right? Whatever that is eventually. So if you're not going to do it the first 5 years, mister, you probably shouldn't even buy this son of a bitch, to be honest with you, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
so.
well, that, and not only that, I mean, if someone's stuck at 10.9% interest, a lot of times people are owner financing just because they don't want to go to the bank. A lot of these people actually can, um,
It's a pain
or
in the
they may not
ass.
have,
We all know that,
or they may,
right?
yeah. But in 2 or 3 years, if they can go to the bank, because right now if banks at 8 and 3/4, but let's say in 2 years it drops down to 6 and 3/4, these people are going to want to refinance anyway. So you tell them, like, look, you're going to want to refinance when rates drop anyway. So what's it matter if you have a 5 year balloon? You're
Yep.
you know
And,
you're
and you can even be like, hey, ask your real estate agent. Ask if the interest rates are gonna be cheaper in 2 years. And they're gonna be like,
yeah,
yeah, no shit. Yeah.
yeah. So that's the biggest one I think that most people might not be doing right now is the balloons.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree with you. And the thing is that doesn't fit for a 5 acre in Castilla County, right? It doesn't, right? Because you're just going to do a 5 year or 6 year term anyway. But whenever you're looking at a, 50, 60, 80, 100, 100, $200,000 property, it makes a big difference. It makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, it
So,
does.
and most banks, to be honest with you, are only going to allow a 5 year term anyway. So you're going to allow them to come in, have a comparable interest rate, give or take, not have to deal with the banks, not have to deal with all the headaches, and still get basically the same term that they were going to get with the bank.